Let's say you just bought a house. Bad news is, you're one step closer to becoming your parents. You'll proudly mow the lawn, ask if anybody noticed you mowed the lawn, tell people to stay off the lawn, compare it to your neighbor's lawn, and complain about having to mow the lawn again. Good news is, it's easy to bundle home and auto through Progressive and save on your car insurance, which, of course, will go right into the lawn. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Discount not available in all states or situations.
Football represents something we are.
Football is like life. You gotta push.
Fantasy football is about proving that you are better than your friends.
Hold up.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Faceoff,
I'm going to do what's best for the team.
where fantasy meets reality.
Pure fantasy football nirvana.
And now your hosts,
Let the games begin.
Anthony Cervino and Michael Hoff.
And welcome back to the FF Faceoff, where fantasy meets reality. It is always great to have you with us for another absolutely loaded show covering all the ins and outs of NFL Minicamp here at the most dynamic fantasy football podcast on the planet, now part of the brand new full-time fantasy podcast network. And as always, we have a lot to talk about right now.
I want all of you peons to stand up on your feet and show respect to the man who rules the world.
Before I was so rudely interrupted by the great Dr. Harvey Whippleman, I'm coming to you live from the FF Faceoff studio at the beautiful Jersey Shore. I am your host, Anthony Cervino. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at The Real NFL Guru. And don't forget to follow the show at the FF Faceoff as well. You can find us on all of the top social media platforms. If you're coming to us right now on YouTube, Facebook Live, Periscope, Twitter, or Twitch, welcome to the big show. And if you're joining us right now in podcast format on iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spreaker, Google Podcast, Amazon Alexa, TuneIn, or Apple Podcast, thanks for stopping by. But before we get into the action, here is a public service announcement from His Lordship.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
All right, guys, you know the drill. If you like today's episode and subscribe to our channel, please leave us a comment saying that you have subscribed. And once you're done, we will reply back to as many as we can to show our appreciation to you. Like I always like to remind you, the FF Faceoff is a cost-free production, but just because we bring you a cost-free production, it doesn't mean that a lot of time doesn't go into our efforts in terms of preparation, pre-production, post-production, and research. And because we do bring you a cost-free program, all we ask for in return is for some cost-free engagements to help us grow our fan base and our community. These engagements are things that you can do right now live as you are watching the show on YouTube or any of our other platforms or listening to the show in podcast format. Every time you like our show, anytime you like our show and subscribe, and then hit the alert icon so you can be notified anytime that we are live or upload. Every time that you share our content, leave us a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Every time you tell each and every person that you know, it not only helps reach more of you, but all of your engagements and interactions never ever go unnoticed. We see our podcast analytics booming. We see our program climbing up the ranks over at Spreaker and Apple Podcasts. We see our YouTube engagement and subscribers slowly creeping in the right direction. So in advance, we thank you. And before I forget, if you ever want to skip the PSA or jump to a certain part of the show or segment, all you have to do is check out the description for timestamps, which may not always work in mobile platform. If you're using YouTube mobile, there's a good chance that the timestamp link will not work. That is for desktop only. As far as I know, contact YouTube if you have any other questions about it, because, that is above my pay grade. If you're listening to us in podcasts or watching us on video, all you have to do is check out the timestamp of the segment you want to jump to, open up your video or podcast player, and just scroll to that exact marker. Everybody wins in this scenario. And now that that's all out of the way, let's get right into the program as we go around the league and recap the biggest news from minicamp. And let's start with the biggest news of the day. Yesterday, it is the news that everybody is talking about today, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles awarded Carson Wentz with a 4-year, $128 million contract extension, tying him to the team through 2024. If you listen to the show, you know I'm not the biggest Carson Wentz guy in terms of fantasy football. I don't trust the injuries, but we'll get to that. Carson Wentz, talent-wise, is a top 5 to 8 quarterback in the NFL, talent-wise. Carson Wentz comes with a lot of risk, like I said, with the injuries. At least as a pro, he dealt with the ribs in the preseason of his rookie year. He dealt with the knee in 2017, and then the back last year. In his senior year in college, he also dealt with an injury, but what that was, it is escaping my mind. 2016, he played in 16 games. 2017, 13 games. 2018, 11 games. Trending in the wrong direction. If I was the Eagles, I would have waited to pay Carson Wentz this deal. In theory, they made the right decision. Yes, they could have waited 2 years, theoretically, to pay him. Because they could have franchise tagged him for 2 years. Not the best decision in the world, and I understand why they did it now. Not only does it put the Dallas Cowboys in a really bad situation with Dak Prescott, because now that Wentz is getting over $30 million a year, Dak's going to command more money, especially since Dak has at least played in and won playoff game. Carson Wentz hasn't appeared in a playoff game. Dak has. And I get that Dak isn't the specimen, the talented specimen that Carson Wentz is, but Dak has the intangibles that some question, some including Eagles teammates question, does Carson Wentz even have? The Eagles are gambling because if you wait to pay Carson Wentz and he stays healthy and they go on a run, then he's probably going to command a lot more money than they are now committed to him. If Carson Wentz gets hurt, whether it's now or 2 years from now or 3 years from now, if he gets hurt, the Eagles are screwed, whether you're talking about financially or whether you're talking about as a team. You're screwed either way. At least this time, going and giving him the deal this early, it saves them money in the long run. It puts the Cowboys in a bad situation. From a fantasy football perspective, Carson Wentz has finished outside of the top 20 in quarterback finishes in 2 of the past 3 years since he's been in the league. The one time he finished inside the top 20, he finished as the QB5 in 13 games in 2017, the year that Nick Foles finished out the year and won a Super Bowl. The Eagles loaded Carson Wentz up with weapons. Of course, you have Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, Alshon Jeffrey. You bring in Deshaun Jackson. You draft Whiteside or Kiga. They still have Aguilar, who could be expendable. Bring in Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders. Hell, they even drafted an offensive lineman anticipating Lane Johnson or Jason Peters, given their age, to miss time. They drafted one early. The Eagles are set for a run, just like I say my Cowboys are set for a run. The Eagles on paper are probably right there, if not a little bit better than the Cowboys on offense. I don't know about defense. I would probably still give the edge to my Cowboys on defense, but regardless, the Eagles are set to make a run. The difference is health. Dak doesn't miss time. Dak bounces right back, knock on wood. The Eagles could very well be a 8-2 team. 10-2. And then Carson Wentz goes down. You're going to put in Nate Sudfeld. There's no more Nick Foles. And that's the issue. What if Wentz goes down? There's no more Nick Foles to save you. All of a sudden, you have egg on your face looking back at this contract. If Carson Wentz goes down, from a fantasy football perspective, I already told you Carson Wentz, they reloaded his arsenal of weapons. Right now, Carson Wentz is going as the 9th quarterback off the board, 11th pick in the 7th round, according to Fantasy Football Calculator. If Carson Wentz finished as the QB5 in 2017 in 13 games, where is he going to finish if he plays all 16 or maybe even 15? Carson Wentz's weapons going into 2019 are better than they were in 2017. You could make the case that Carson Wentz is going to be a fantasy football league winner considering his ADP. That's if he plays all year. A lot of ifs with Carson Wentz. If Carson Wentz's ADP falls, do you take him? Absolutely. But even right now, if you take a risk on Carson Wentz for your fantasy football team, you must handcuff yourself with the backup. Normally, if you take a Pat Mahomes or a Luck or a Rodgers, if you take one of these reliable quarterbacks, and I know Luck hasn't been reliable of late, but he looks reliable again, and he was reliable earlier in his career. Mahomes hasn't missed a game. Rodgers dealt with the injuries, but he looks like he's righting the ship. You know, Matt Ryan doesn't miss any time. You draft Matt Ryan as a fantasy quarterback, you're probably not going to draft a backup. Same thing with Drew Brees or Russell Wilson. With Carson Wentz, you now have to burn a bench spot, or at least it would be wise to burn a bench spot on another quality quarterback, especially in 12-team leagues or above. Because if you don't, and you lose Carson Wentz in Week 12 right before the fantasy playoffs, and let's say your team isn't that good, but Carson Wentz is having an MVP type of year and he got you there, and if your team isn't that good behind him, because there is situations, you know, speaking personally, where I've ridden Aaron Rodgers to a championship and the rest of my team wasn't all that good. I got lucky and I started the right guys, but it was really Aaron Rodgers. And if Carson Wentz has that type of year, then goes down and you're stuck, you know, with I don't know, you have to pick up Nick Foles off waivers. You got to pick up a Matt Stafford who may or may not have a good year. Josh Allen. Joe Flacco. That might all that's all that might be left. So if you're drafting Wentz, I would consider investing in a backup. Now, not too early. You can still get a Lamar Jackson around 13. Derek Carr around 13. Dak round 12. But I certainly wouldn't prepare myself to go into 2019 with only Carson Wentz as my quarterback. I wouldn't rely on waivers. I would protect my investment. Moving ahead, we have some news today that the district attorney's office told the media that the police probe into Tyreek Hill's child abuse allegations is no longer active. In quote from the Johnson County District Attorney Steve Howe, "It is not an active investigation. As in any case, if we receive additional evidence, we will reevaluate." The case was eventually reopened after the audio was released a few months back of Tyreek Hill and his fiancée. But apparently the Johnson County Police Office didn't feel that there was enough to file charges. So Tyreek Hill could be escaping this with no police charges filed. But we do know the NFL is going to come down with something. Hell, the NFL wants to give Zeke, or at least try to give Ezekiel Elliott something for the altercation in the Vegas Music Festival where he was cuffed and let go. They want to investigate that. You're telling me they're not going to give Tyreek Hill something? And that's the dilemma with Tyreek Hill. Right now, his ADP is, 6th, 7th round in PPR? We don't know if he's going to get 4, 6, 8, 10 more whole season. Right now, he's on a commissioner's exempt list, which usually spells suspension. Tell you something right now. Tyreek Hill is a league winner if he gets an 8-game suspension and comes back right around when Kareem Hunt comes back. And if Tyreek Hill slips in your draft into double-digit rounds, which I've seen, he's a league winner. But if you're going to ask me right now on the 7th of June of 2019, am I going to burn a 6th or 7th round pick on Tyreek Hill? Absolutely not. There's still so many questions that do not have answers, which makes him still a risky pick. Rams running back Todd Gurley told NFL Network's, former NFL running back Maurice Jones-Drew that he is not hurt. How many times are we going to go back and forth on Todd Gurley? I'm talking about him on every episode. I'm not going to go too heavy into it. But there is clearly something going on with Todd Gurley. And all offseason, it has been the organization showing us signs that there is something wrong or something bothering them or something not right. Malcolm Brown, Darrell Henderson, protecting their investment. Meanwhile, conflicting reports, Todd Gurley saying, nope, I'm good. This isn't the first time saying, nope, I'm good. If you were good, then don't you think they could have let Malcolm Brown walk? Don't you think that they wouldn't have drafted Darrell Henderson when they could have addressed their interior offensive or defensive line, where you do have holes because of off-season vacancies by Ndamukong Suh, John Sullivan, and Roger Saffold? You're a fantasy football owner and you still don't believe that Todd Gurley is a risk taking him early in the first round, then you're going to be in for a surprise. His ADP is late first, but I'm not going to touch him until early to mid-second round. Because at least in that spot, you can build in 6 games missed or 6 games worth of production taken off the top, which is about fair, which is how we viewed Ezekiel Elliott in 2017. Zeke was a second-round pick, and he still managed to finish as a fringe RB1 without those 6 games, and that matches up with where he was taken that year in 2017 when he missed those 6 games with the suspension. Treat Todd Gurley the same way, and I think he'll be fine. Moving ahead, a little bit of Dolphins news. Dolphins beat writer Barry Jackson has been busy reporting that Ryan Fitzpatrick is consistently outplaying Josh Rosen in practice so far. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to play. I think he probably could start in week 1, but I do believe we will see Josh Rosen make many appearances. It's still early, and Josh Rosen has to get used to how things are done in Miami. New system, new city, new teammates. It didn't cost much for the Dolphins to acquire and to pay Josh Rosen. And if they're looking ahead to their future, especially if the team is going to be bad and they are going to be in line to take a quarterback in 2020 draft, they have to do their due diligence and make sure Josh Rosen is not that guy. I don't believe Josh Rosen is that guy. I've never been a Josh Rosen guy. But the Dolphins have to do their due diligence from a fantasy football perspective. They might be better off with Ryan Fitzpatrick. And that's okay. They brought him there to be a bridge. And that's exactly what he is going to be. Dolphins beat writer Barry Jackson, very busy guy, telling us that Devontae Parker has been the best player in camp in the past 5 weeks. The same Devontae Parker that every offseason, we listen to the hype. Some of us buy into the hype, and usually Devontae Parker disappoints.
He's gonna puke! He's gonna puke! He's gonna puke!
Whether it's not getting on a field, whether it is not producing when he's on the field, or whether it's soft tissue injuries, repeated soft tissue injuries, Devontae Parker has been nothing but a disappointment. In fact, I am surprised the Dolphins brought him back. There were reports before the draft saying that Devontae Parker could be dealt. The new regime clearly wants to keep him. I don't know why. Maybe they need bodies. Maybe because, Devontae Parker played okay against the Patriots. This is a Patriots regime. Maybe Bill Belichick had his eye on Devontae Parker. And, the new Dolphins regime isn't forgetting that. Hey, Bill saw something in this guy. Let's see if we can get it out of him. All that said, I don't know how much trust I'm putting into Devontae Parker fantasy football. Not much. Albeit he's probably going to be the top receiver in Miami. I mean, it's not going to be Kenny Stills, big play threat. That's about it. Albert Wilson, gadgety player, versatile player. I don't know if he's the number 1 receiver. That's really Devontae Parker. He just needs to step up and play like it. A little bit of injury news. Bruce Arians, Buccaneers coach, told the press that Mike Evans tweaked his hamstring. This is really nothing. Could it develop into something if it's something more than what Bruce Arians is telling us? Yes. Most likely, they'll probably keep Mike Evans out until camp. Should Mike Evans re-injure his hamstring, or let's say if he's not ready going into camp, then let's start monitoring this a little bit more, because that means that if there is something more that we don't know. And like I always say, if you read in between the lines, if you read in between the coach speak, actions speak louder than words, and we will get the story without necessarily hearing the story. Right now, it's nothing, could be something, I doubt it, but you never know. Jaguars head coach Doug Marrone told the press that fifth-round running back Raquel Armstead has a slight hamstring injury. Another running back, another soft tissue injury on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Again, same thing here. Could be nothing, could be something. The only difference is Raquel Armstead is not Mike Evans. Sometimes rookies get shaken up with an injury and it ends up setting them back all year long. We saw that with John Ross. We saw that with Mike Williams a couple years ago. Mike Williams hurts his back and, barely sees the field. Same thing with John Ross. John Ross was outlawed by the old regime in Cincinnati. Little wide receiver news in the NFC North. The Lions signed Jermaine Kearse, 1 year, $1.35 million deal. You already have Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones. He brought in Danny Amendola. So why did the Lions bring in Jermaine Kearse? Well, if you remember last year, when Golden Tate was dealt and Marvin Jones had a season-ending injury, the Lions had nothing at wide receiver. They tried Powell. They tried T.J. Jones. They brought in Ellington. They were a mess. They had to go out and address their depth behind the starters. Jermaine Kearse adds depth. From a fantasy football perspective, not much here. As long as Golladay and Marvin Jones are healthy and Danny Amendola are healthy, Jermaine Kearse will probably be a package player. But if anybody goes down, Jermaine Kearse could once again bring fantasy football value in 2019. Let's not forget the Lions are still the Lions, and Matt Stafford's still a productive quarterback when healthy and one of the pieces around him are healthy. Matt Stafford's ADP is in the tank. 26 quarterback taken off the board. Darnold, Foles, Jackson, Trubisky, Carr, Dak. All these guys, Josh Allen, Garoppolo, all taken ahead of Matt Stafford. I know Matt Stafford may never be the player he once was, but I think he's a little bit better than his current 11th pick in the 4th round average draft position. A little bit of Packers news. Aaron Rodgers told the press that he wants to throw to Devontae Adams more, and that Marquez Valdes-Scantling is having a pretty good offseason. I like Aaron Rodgers to bounce back this year. He has a chip on his shoulder, and you're going to say, how does Aaron Rodgers have a chip? What does he have left to prove? Aaron Rodgers has a lot to prove. After Aaron Rodgers had the injury, he missed time. He was never really that same player that we're used to seeing. Then he had the falling out last year with Mike McCarthy. Aaron Rodgers last year finished as a QB6 in 16 games. We're used to seeing Aaron Rodgers finish as a top 3 quarterback. So Aaron Rodgers wants to prove that he can get the job done without Mike McCarthy. Aaron Rodgers wants to win another championship. I mean, there are reporters out there, or not reporters, or articles that I've seen saying that Mitchell Trubisky is going to dethrone Aaron Rodgers. Mitchell Trubisky! Give me a break. This is Aaron Rodgers. Let's not forget his laundry list of accomplishments in the NFL. One of the best quarterbacks, if not the best I've ever seen play live. And I've seen a lot play. doesn't get much better than Aaron Rodgers. And I think people forget that, and I think Aaron Rodgers wants to prove something in 2019. Matt LaFleur, new, young offensive coordinator, inject some youth in the building, just like I like to say about the Bengals and Zach Taylor. As far as to throwing to Davante Adams more, yeah, I would say that's a pretty good idea. Davante Adams is a top 3 fantasy receiver. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, having a big offseason. The Packers need help behind Davante Adams. He can't get it all. I like Geronimo Allison a lot. I believe that Geronimo Allison is in line for the wide receiver 2 duties. Something that we've seen a little bit last year. Geronimo Allison, when he played, I believe he averaged double-digit PPR points a game. Didn't play a lot, 5 games. But when he was there, he was getting targets, and he was making the best of his targets. Injuries are going to be the issue with Geronimo Allison, and I know I've been promising you this overvalued, undervalued receiver show. I was all prepared. I have notes prepared for that show. I was going to do that today, but after the Wentz and the Tyreek Hill news, and there has been a lot of news since Tuesday, the last time I brought you this type of show, I figured, you know what, let's do a new show, and let's do wide receivers hopefully tomorrow, but you will be getting it, don't worry. And here's a spoiler, Geronimo Allison is going to be talked about on that show. So you have Davante Adams, Geronimo Allison, Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Barring injury, they are going to be your top 3 Packers receivers. St. Brown can also be in the mix, but I think he is more of an injury-dependent player. You also have Jimmy Graham, who I said in the last show, he's vowing to be a better red zone target. I think this Packers offense, man, you talk about the upside in Philly. Let's not forget about the weapons that Aaron Rodgers has to throw to. People talk about Wentz. People talk about the Colts and their weapons for Andrew Luck. Man, the Packers are loaded, and we're not even talking about Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams yet. Oh, and that rookie tight end, Jay Sternberger. I mean, absolutely loaded. They just need Aaron Rodgers to adjust to the young players and the young players to kind of grow up quick so they don't piss off Aaron Rodgers. Vikings beat writer Arif Hassan reports that Jordan Taylor has been working as the Vikings wide receiver 3. Why is this significant? Because just like the Lions, outside of your starting receivers, depth's an issue. Laquan Treadwell's not it. Aldrick Robinson, I believe, signed with the Panthers of free agency. So you're left with Jordan Taylor and then that late round rookie, Dylan Mitchell. Tell you what, if Diggs or Thielen go down, you're going to have some issues. And Kirk Cousins, good quarterback, big number quarterback, but he needs the weapons. He needs his starters to stay on the field, and he needs one of these young guys, whether it's Mitchell or Taylor, to step up, or Smith, step up. You know, we talk about Dalvin Cook a lot. Dalvin Cook goes down, Madison has to step up. Vikings are that hollow Easter bunny I like to talk about. I always bring up that hollow Easter bunny. Looks good in the wrapping. You open it up, smells good, there's chocolate, looks really good, but when you bite into it, it's not that thick Easter bunny. It's that one that looks really good and tasty on the outside, but once you poke a hole in it, once you bite a hole in it, it falls apart and crumbles. Vikings need depth. Little bit of news out of Redskins camp. Jason La Canfora, CBS Sports, reporting that left tackle Trent Williams, one of the better left tackles in the game, is demanding a trade or his release. He wants a new contract. There seems to be a stalemate, and whatever happened with that stalemate, in a matter of a couple of days, now he wants a trade or a release. Trent Williams has been a big part of this offensive line in Washington for, 8 years? Give or take? They need him. He was a big part of the reason why Adrian Peterson managed to rush for over 1,000 yards last year. They absolutely positively need Trent Williams to be healthy on the field and happy, especially when you're planning on rolling out a rookie quarterback, rookie receiver, Darius Geis, who missed all of his rookie year last year, so essentially he's a rookie. This is a very young team. Trent Williams is a veteran, respected player in the locker room, can really hold it down, hold everybody together, along with Jordan Reed and Vernon Davis. Losing Trent Williams would be a devastating loss for the Washington Redskins, and we're not even in the preseason yet or training camp. Redskins wide receiver Paul Richardson, recovering from shoulder surgery, has yet to regain clearance to return to football activities. No more Crowder. Paul Richardson's hurt. There's a good chance that Kelvin Harmon and Terry McLaurin are going to see significant playing time along with Josh Doxson and Trey Quinn, especially if Richardson can't get on the field. This is going to be a very, very young Redskins team. Little bit of news out of New England. Patriots running back Sony Michel has been away from minicamp and has not been spotted at a Patriots practice since May 20th. I don't know if this is injury related or not, but there's something going on with Sony Michel. Could it be something personal? Absolutely. But there's also a very good chance that it could be injury-related. He has that lengthy history of knee injuries, including last season. You know, if Sony Michel doesn't return, this is going to be another player to watch heading into training camp in the preseason, because if he is dealing with an injury, number one, the Patriots don't want to tell us. And number two, if it's another knee thing, it's going to drastically impact his fantasy football value. We know they brought in Damian Harris. Rex Burkhead still lingers. And of course, James White. This is going to be a very difficult and crowded backfield to decipher, but once injuries and hot hands become to, start to flare up, players are going to get hurt. All of a sudden games are going to start and we're going to see one of these running backs get hot and they are going to be the players to own. That's usually the way it shakes out, especially with a team like the Patriots who carry so many bodies. They just waiting for somebody to emerge. Right now, continue to draft Sony Michel as you were, but certainly monitor his mini camp and practice attendance and monitor the news just in case this is in fact injury related. A little bit more of New England Patriots chatter. Jeff Howe reports N'Keal Harry is getting a lot of work with the starters. Why wouldn't he? First round wide receiver, albeit last pick in the first round. He is still a first round wide receiver on a team that does need wide receiver help. Help at pass catcher in general. No more Gronk. No more Osafarian Jenkins. Ben Watson's out 4 games with the suspension. They're down to Matt Lacoste. The Boston Herald is reporting or suggesting that all signs are pointing to Lacoste to be the Patriots' Week 1 tight end 1, unless they trade for somebody. And there's a very good chance N'Keal Harry is going to be a Week 1 starter in his own right. This shouldn't be news.
Out of my way, jerk-ass!
This should be the expected outcome. Broncos head coach Vic Fangio expects Philip Lindsay, who's dealing with a wrist injury, to be ready for camp. Fangio also believes Emmanuel Sanders, coming off the Achilles, could return, and quote, before people think. Sanders and Lindsay are both key parts of the Broncos offense. If they can get anything out of Emmanuel Sanders coming off the Achilles, I think that is going to be a tremendous asset for the offense and for Joe Flacco. Emmanuel Sanders is a big play, deep play wide receiver, and we know Joe Flacco is a big arm quarterback. That connection could be something fun to watch if Emmanuel Sanders can come back and look anything like the player that he was. Not only is he coming off the Achilles, but he is also over the age of 30. But still, we see receivers be productive at this age. It's just a matter of injury rehab at this point. And on Philip Lindsay, while he's out, we are seeing more Royce Freeman and more Royce Freeman in the passing game getting reps. So while Philip Lindsay has been out, Royce Freeman is taking advantage of his opportunity. If you remember last year, it was Royce Freeman. He was the darling before Philip Lindsay emerged. Royce Freeman also has draft capital on his side. I don't want to be overly worried, but I am a little bit worried about the Broncos' backfield. This could very well be a two-headed monster. Last year was a little bit lopsided going into the side of Philip Lindsay because Royce Freeman dealt with multiple injuries. But if they're both healthy going into week 1, it would not surprise me one bit if they both saw the reps and the snaps. If you remember, Royce Freeman was also getting a lot of the short yardage and goal line work, which could heavily impact Philip Lindsay's fantasy stock. Let's do an ADP price check right now on Philip Lindsay. And Philip Lindsay right now, his ADP was a lot higher, was in the 3rd round at the start of the offseason. Now his ADP, 4th round. Right in between Derrick Henry and Sony Michel. Royce Freeman, 1st pick in the 9th round. If you ask me, if I'm going to take a shot at a Broncos running back, why wouldn't I take a Sony Michel or a Derrick Henry or even a David Montgomery or a Mark Ingram? They're all 4th round running backs. Or wait, take a wide receiver and then go get Kenyon Drake in the 5th round, James White in the 5th round, Chris Carson in the 5th round. Grab one of those guys over Philip Lindsay, and then in the 9th round, then go get Royce Freeman. That could be a wiser way to take your fantasy strategy. Moving ahead, a little bit of news out of Bengals camp. Remember when everybody was talking up Ryan Finley? He was going to take Andy Dalton's job? The reports at a Bengals camp are stating that Ryan Finley looks really bad. I don't want to say I told you so because it's early and he can still turn it around, but it's never good when your rookie quarterback, I don't care if he was a 1st round or an undrafted guy, you never want to see reports out of anybody. This player looks really bad. And that's what we're seeing out of Ryan Finley. I don't think, and this isn't a hot take, I don't think Ryan Finley is taking Andy Dalton's job, barring injury in 2019. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me if Ryan Finley, if these reports continue and if this negative play continues, I don't even know if he's going to beat out Jeff Driscoll for the quarterback 2 spot. So let's pump the brakes on kicking Andy Dalton, who's a very capable quarterback, not only in fantasy when him and his weapons are healthy, but he's also been to the playoffs, 4 or 5 times? You can't put it all on him. Marvin Lewis was the coach. Let's not sell Andy Dalton short. Not yet. Let's see what he can do with Zach Taylor and the new regime. Where are we? Where are we? Little bit of news out of Colts. Head coach Frank Reich told the press Chester Rogers is looking really good. This team is loaded. You want to add Chester Rogers to the mix with Funches, T.Y. Hilton, Paris Campbell, Deion Kane was coming off an injury, Chester Rogers, the running backs, the tight ends. They have a plethora of talent. They have an excess of depth and talent around Andrew Luck. Like I said, everybody wants to talk up Wentz and the Eagles. This Colts team is going to be special in 2019. How about their tight ends, right? Apparently, Mo Alley Cox is having a tremendous offseason. He's showcasing, per the Indianapolis Star, remarkable development. You have Jack Doyle, Eric Ebron, Mo Alley Cox. I believe Doyle and Ebron, if not both, then one, are going to be free agents. And then they're sitting on Mo Alley Cox for the future. I mean, Chris Ballard, what a tremendous job he's done as a general manager with putting his player personnel together. He deserves a lot of credit and a lot of applaud, especially in the NFL front office conversations. Seahawks news, a lot of Seahawks news. Offensive coordinator Brian Schottenheimer told the press that the offense will remain run heavy in 2019. That's good if you're a Rashad Penny and a Chris Carson owner, because the Seahawks were the only team to run more than they passed last season. And I do believe that will continue. Rashad Penny has been drawing raves for his conditioning this offseason. Apparently, Rashad Penny is showing out. Rashad Penny and Chris Carson could be one of the better 1-2 punches in the NFL and for fantasy football purposes in 2019. While Schottenheimer is saying that the team plans to move around Tyler Lockett in 2019, Jerron Brown is being touted for having an unbelievable offseason. I talked up Jerron Brown a little bit a few shows ago. I think he could certainly challenge David Moore for that wide receiver 3 spot. And of course, it's not a lock for DK Metcalf to start right out the gate. It's not a lock, but I do believe it is the way it's going to turn out. But it's not a lock. Let's say DK Metcalf wasn't a week 1 starter and he was a wide receiver 4. It would be Tyler Lockett, Jerron Brown, David Moore. I think it will be Metcalf, Lockett, and Jerron Brown, especially if Jerron Brown can stay healthy, because he did look pretty good with Carson Palmer and the Cardinals a few years ago before injuries derailed his career a little bit. Odell Beckham did report to minicamp. Breaking news. Perhaps bigger news out of Browns camp is that Duke Johnson has reported but still is demanding a trade. You know how I feel about how this is going to play out. I believe that Duke Johnson will remain a part of the Cleveland Browns until the trade deadline. Right around the trade deadline is when Kareem Hunt will be reinstated, and then you could move forward with Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. Right now, it would be foolish to move on from Duke Johnson. Now, a lot can happen. Somebody can get hurt on another team and then offer the Browns a pretty penny for Duke Johnson. Because we know Duke Johnson, when given the touches, is a capable and productive back, especially a productive pass-catching back. However, and I'm trying to pull up the Browns depth chart right now, but there's not much behind Duke Johnson and Nick Chubb while Kareem Hunt is serving his suspension. Dontrell Hilliard, Dearness Johnson, Trayon Gray. I mean, come on. If you're the Browns, you are waiting for A, Kareem Hunt to be reinstated, or B, wait until a team gives you a can't-pass-up offer for Duke Johnson, then move him. Don't move him now just because he's crying for a trade. And then sit back your team just in case Nick Chubb goes down. That'll do it for today's show. It was a heavy news-laden show because this is the time of year where there's a lot of NFL news and a lot of significant NFL news that can help you win fantasy football championships. No, it may not help you now, but it can help you in Week 10. It can help you, in Week 8, Week 12, fantasy playoffs, when you're looking for a plug-and-play player because your guy is out. And a player that I may talk about who's showing out, a player like Jerron Brown, may be that guy you pick up to save your fantasy season. This is why these new shows are important. I also love talking about other things than fantasy football. I love talking NFL news, rumors, and storylines, and projections and predictions. And it's not just fantasy football here. I love everything about the NFL. I love everything about fantasy football, and I love talking about it with all of you guys out there. You make this show special. And, again, I like to thank you ahead of time for any type of engagements, interactions, and anything else you can do here to help us grow at the FF Faceoff. If you're listening to us right now in podcast format on iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spreaker, Google Podcasts, Amazon Alexa, or Apple Podcasts, please do me a favor, especially you Apple Podcast users or any user of a podcast platform that allows you to leave us a 5-star rating and review. Please, please, please subscribe to the FF Faceoff. Please leave us a 5-star rating and a 5-star review.
And that's an order.
Telling everyone why you love the show and why we are the best damn fantasy football podcast on the planet where fantasy meets reality. Because the more subscriptions, ratings, and reviews that we get, the more people we can reach. And in the end, we want to help each and every one of you win fantasy football championships, dominate your leagues, and absolutely positively crush the competition. We will maintain the culture of winning we've built here in the FF Faceoff for over 190 episodes and over 2 years since our inception. I will be coming back to you over the weekend, possibly, hopefully tomorrow, either with overvalued and undervalued wide receivers. I promise you guys, you will be getting that show. Or I will be coming with you to talk NFL injuries, fantasy football impactful injuries with the great Dr. Jesse Morse. So you will be getting one of those two shows over the weekend, and hopefully on Tuesday, either the wide receiver show or more news. It all depends on how the rest of this weekend plays out. My name is Anthony Cervino. Follow me on Twitter at The Real NFL Guru. Follow the show at the FF Faceoff. Follow the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast Network. Happy to be on board there. Until next time, I'm Anthony Cervino, and I will see you when I see you.
The internet has changed, so should the way you bank. PNC Virtual Wallet for digital banking. It's time for a change. Now through July 10th, earn up to $300 when you open and use a select new virtual wallet product. Simply establish a qualifying direct deposit and make 10 purchases with a PNC Visa debit card. To learn more, visit the PNC Corbin branch or pnc.com/checking offer. PNC Bank. Make today the day. Visa is a registered trademark of Visa International Service Association and is used under license. PNC Bank National Association member FDIC.
The big wireless companies sold you an outdated plan tied to long-term contracts and mystery fees. Simple Mobile's different. You get a lightning-fast 4G LTE nationwide network with no contract, ever. And keep the phone and number you love. Just text the word BYOP to 611-611 to see if your phone is compatible. Simple Mobile. Out with the old, in with the simple.
Standard text message and data rates may apply based on your mobile phone service. Please refer always to the privacy policy at simplemobile.com/privacy policy and the terms and conditions at simplemobile.com/terms and conditions.